Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to another week of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. I'm so excited to get very well acquainted with our new friend who's here today, Signe Baumane. She's a Latvian-born, Brooklyn-based independent filmmaker, artist, writer, and animator, and she's made 17 award-winning animated shorts. Her newest animated feature is called My Love Affair with Marriage. It came out in 2022, and it tells the story of a spirited young woman's quest for perfect love and lasting marriage. Knock on wood, we should also be so lucky. Signe's a Guggenheim Fellow and a Fellow in Film for the New York Foundation for the Arts, and she has a degree in philosophy from Moscow State University. Signe, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Showtime.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here and to talk with you and to meet you and to get to know all your friends. As for the quest, the main character of My Love Affair with Marriage, her name is Zelma, and it's a quest. So when she is going on a quest to get a perfect love and lasting marriage, it doesn't mean that her quest is fruitful. Just to assure you, just to assure you.
How did this story come about? Is this a story that you came up with yourself, or did you work with a writer and then put it together? How did this project come together?
Well, I was many years ago, I was married to self-described gender-bending man, and I was from this small country, Latvia, that just broken off from the big occupying forces of Russia. And I never met another person from West before. And suddenly I found myself in a film festival, and there's this other animator. And we fell passionately in love, and we married 3 weeks after we knew each other. There's a passion and love and all that. And so I somehow over years, I thought that would be a very interesting, dramatic story. As a filmmaker, I'm always looking for something dramatic. It cannot be just like I went to store and I bought 2 kilograms of ground meat, unless you tell the drama how the ground meat happened to be ground, but so you have to have a drama. And so I
like
thought,
it's human meat or something.
like what?
Is it like it's human meat or something? Like it has to be
or rat meat or whatever. Yeah, whatever we have in our minds, right? It's just the test, What do you think is in the ground meat? But so anyway, so I decided to start writing a script about this love story. And obviously things didn't work out for whatever reasons, for many reasons, for 100,000 reasons that things didn't work out. This greatest love story. But I started writing a script, and then I started to kind of wanting to know, but why did we marry? We didn't have to marry. And I was like, well, because we were in love. And I was like, okay, but why did we fall in love in the first place? So then I started unraveling this whole thing, and I started writing the script about where did I get the first idea in my life, the moment I caught the moment. When I realized that I'm not complete person unless I am shacked up with someone, unless I'm married to someone. And so
right. The
then
whole idea you're useless unless you're part of a couple. You have
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And so, and why is it, and how, and why our concept of love is somehow connected to gender? And, that was kind of also a question. And so I started writing the story, and that is where the film came from. And so these are the origins.
Got it. So how did it come together? Because you have, as far as cast, you got some really great people in it. Like Matthew Modine's in it, Cameron Monaghan. Like how did it come together once you got the script and you said, all right, this is this is the script is solid. I'm ready to take it to the next level.
Yeah, so with the script, a script took 1 year to write, and it was a lot of pain because there's so much also science in it. So it was a very painful process of writing the script. And then I was like, okay, if we don't get the best actors, this is gonna be a dead movie. We have to get the best actors. It's just as simple as that. And so my partner and my collaborator and also the film's producer, one of the producers, Sturgis Warner, he's a theater director and also actor himself. And so he said, I can get you the best New York actors. And so then we reached out to a few, and then somehow, like one after another, for example, Matthew Modine is a friend of Bill Plimpton, a famous animator, and Bill Plimpton is my friend. So, and I met Matthew at film festival. So we reached out to Matthew. So yeah, it's like, I guess, who you know, but the main character, the main actor, Dagmara Dominczyk, she played the main role, Zelma. And that actor had to do it was really challenging role because she had to be a character at ages 7, 8, 9, 12, growing up until 29. And also she had to have a sense of humor, sense of drama, lightness, darkness. There are a lot of things that the actor had to do. And also we wanted the actor to have a name. And so we just didn't know how to go about it. And we reached out to some famous actresses, and the agents don't even reply. The usual, because you're small budget and nobody has ever heard of Signe Baumane. So, and then Sturgis also was offering me all kinds of actresses, and I would just find an excuse to put them down and say, no, she doesn't know comedy. Oh, she doesn't know drama. Because I knew that if we picked the wrong actor, that may kill the whole film.
Right.
And then he showed me a video of Dagmara Dominczyk. I don't know if you know the show Succession. She's in Succession. She was also in Lost Daughter in the movie. And she's well-known actress. And when I saw the video of her reading from the book that she wrote, she's Polish American, and she wrote this book called Lullaby for Polish Girls. And I was just so smitten by her instantly. Like, she could do like 300 characters in one sentence, and she knew how to storytell, and she was just funny, delightful, and she would go to dark places. But the fact that she was Polish American meant that she would know that world that I was writing about, the world of the Eastern Europe and the people living in Eastern Europe, and I wouldn't have to explain it to her. So we reached out to her agent, and of course, the agent didn't reply. And then Sturgis remembered that he has a friend who worked with her, and so he reached out to him, and he reached out to her. So rest is the history. Yes, but that is how we did the casting, and I think you're right. Casting is crucial, and it's also very difficult to do if you don't know people.
And even if you do know people, it's difficult because then you have to make sure that everyone's available when they need to be available, when you're ready for them to be available, and then change and schedule.
Not in animation, though. Not in animation. The privilege of animation and working with actors is that, first of all, we never recorded them together. They, like, sometimes they would come in together, but very rarely. Most of them, they would come in and record whenever they had time, and we rented the studio, and they come in for their 5 hours and record their character, and that's it, and then we would edit it together. And then, like Dagmara said, that the greatest joy, she said, that was the best job I had in a whole year. She said, I could show up in my pajamas and nobody would know.
Is it difficult, like, when you have, like, if everyone's recording separately, to get like the line readings of the different characters to kind of match up, like, to ensure that, like, if character one is saying something in a certain way, that character two's response aligns with the tone and the way that character one delivered their line?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. That is for Dagmara, that was not a problem. When she was the first one that we recorded, and Sturgis, he's an actor. He would read the lines opposite of her, so that would help her. And then once we recorded her, and most of the scenes were with her, so we would play her, her take, because she's so good that everybody was like, oh my God, I have to step up here.
Well, that's really awesome, right? Because, like, so she's like helped elevate the entire project just with her talent alone. I love it. And so the film premiered at Tribeca, and it's screened at a variety of different festivals. Yeah, so it was very well received.
We have a Brooklyn screening coming up. It's going to play at Brooklyn Academy of Music
Oh,
on
wonderful.
February 20th at 7 o'clock, and it's a free screening. And so they screen My Love Affair is Marriage as part of it.
Oh, that's wonderful. We'll have to come out and check it out. I'm excited. Yay.
Yes, it's a free screening. Yes, the price is right.
Absolutely. So I want to go back. So tell me about just how you kind of began your career. You started out as an animator. Did you start out just like as a kid, like with the love of visual arts? Did you start with a love of animation, or how did you come to your craft?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because until, like, I don't know when, uh, I wanted to be a writer since I was 7. Because I thought, when I learned to read and I read my first book, I realized that was written by a person and they were in my head. And that feeling, like they had power, like their words, their imagination released words and imagination in my brain. And I set off to write my first novel, and it was about, it's a dramatic story set in feudal Latvia in medieval ages, and it was romantic drama, tragedy of a young peasant woman falling in love with her landlord's young son, and they have to escape and all that, like 8-year-olds would write novels like that. And so and so that's what I wanted to do for a long, long time. I wanted to be a writer. But somehow everybody told me you can't be a writer unless you get your own life experience. And on a way, you get life. Actually ended up studying philosophy in Moscow State University. And I studied it for 5 years. I was doodling in my notebooks. And she said, I would like to see these doodles move. I think you should go into animation. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, sounds amazing. My doodles into the storyboards, and I realized that I love it, occupation, to draw and then make these little storyboards. And so and it's kind of like a love at first sight.
mm-hmm.
And now, what, how many years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, I'm still doing it. And it's like any long-term relationship, it has its good days, it has its bad days. So
Yeah. I love it. So talk to me about like your first project, the first project you said, all right, I'm taking this on. And it doesn't need to necessarily be your first feature, but your first, like, okay, this is something, I'm not just kind of like playing around with it, but like I'm putting some serious thought into this, and I want to use this to, take my career to the next level, or I want to explore, a specific theme or topic that I've been dying to get outside of me. Tell me about that first project.
well, it's an interesting question, because my first 3 films that I made in Latvia, they were supported, like they're small, and they would pay you to do this. And and I didn't animate them. I had an animator. I mean, I like these projects, the 3 films. When I immigrated to New York, when I left Latvia and I came to New York, I was I felt like I could never make a film because I never had enough time or money because I was very, very poor. But one day I said, okay, no excuses. I have enough money for the next 2 months, and I have time for 2 months, and so I'm gonna sit down and make a film. And I wanted to make this film in my head. I imagine this like scene, the antelope when it comes to drink water in a like a pond, and there is a alligator or crocodile waiting underwater, and then waiting, and then when antelope is like close enough, he leaps out and grabs and then the battle between the alligator and the antelope ensues, and they just go around, and I saw the scene of the crocodile and antelope fighting with each other, and it was in the night, and I saw these little shimmering splatters of water, the droplets of water flying around, and then of course the alligator wins, and he drags the antelope into the darkness of the abyss of water. And now it was just could see in front of my eyes, and I really want to animate. But because I never studied drawing and animation, I was aware I could not animate such a complex scene where two animals are fighting this way. And I thought, let's make it to the bottom of it. What is in this visual that really interests me? What is the bottom? And as a student of philosophy, I was able to kind of strip down the symbolical meaning of the scene. And so I thought, okay, well, then this is the two forces represent the male sexuality, which is more instinct-based, and the antelope represents female sexuality, which is more, socializing or communication based, like sex for
Like
women.
emotionally based, like.
I wouldn't say emotionally, very often women have sex and they don't even reach an orgasm, but they do it because it's a form of communication. It's
Total. Well, when
form,
I said emotional, I meant in the
yeah.
form of like emotional intelligence, in terms of
Mm.
like reading
Yeah.
other people, and kind of getting a feel of other people.
Yeah, like something like that. What alligator represents and what antelope represents. Let me make a film about a boy and a girl and a crocodile and a dog. And so I made this film, and because I knew my limitations, I knew how little time I had, how little money I had, and what a little skill I had to animate. So I made a film with only 200 drawings, where normally it would be at least 6,000 or 2,000 the minimum for 3-minute film. And I was able to finish it in 2 months. And that film emboldened me. It did go to like, I don't know, 100 festivals. It's still screening at my retrospectives, and I'm kind of proud of it, in a kind of a limited way, like I'm not like super proud of it, but I'm, proud of it because I finished it. I did it. And it did kind of helped me to establish the reputation as a filmmaker, as a provocative filmmaker, and that really helped to make the next turn to my career. That's the question that you asked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's exciting. How long did you say that the whole process took of getting that all together? From the moment
Two,
that you had this vision to it is in the can, it is done, post is finished, and it's ready to go out.
yeah, 2 months.
2 months. Okay. All right.
That's very little. That's very short.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my head. That's really wonderful. So you've done so much. You've done some really interesting films. You're also a fine artist. Is there anything that you haven't had the opportunity to do that you want to do? Like whether it's a, professional bucket list kind of a thing, or oh, there's this idea that you've had and you just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason that may be.
Some time ago, I was wondering how would it feel to direct a live action feature film?
Hmm.
Animation takes so long. And I was like, well, how would that feel? How would I do? How would I go about it? And I'm still thinking about it, but I am kind of getting less interested in it because I feel that animation has more tools, more language, like visual language. It has way more in its toolbox than live action films. Live action films can feel really limiting,
Right.
and you can write a script and it's all great and you shoot it, but how this film would be different, how this film is your signature, how do you make it your own style in live action film, and I think that only very few people or directors have been able to put a mark on it, like Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, or the Asteroid City, Wes Anderson. He
Hmm.
has a particular style, and in animation you don't have to worry about it. If you have a style as an artist, you definitely that will be your style, and also in animation I am free, like in my love affair with marriage. I was able to go as a storyteller. I could bring my audience from inside Selma's head into the outside world that she lives in. Then I would go inside her biology, and then I would go into the political maps in the political world that she lives in. It's like four worlds at the same time. Whereas in live action, you would have to kind of stop the action, say, here's animation segment, or here's another animation segment. It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You definitely with animation, you can kind of just go anywhere. Period. Like you're not bound by the laws of physics and reality.
Yeah, yeah, that's
If you
right.
did if you did do a live action film, like would do you think that it would be similar in theme as some of the stuff that you've previously done, or do you think you might try to do something completely different just for the sake of experimenting?
Um, no, I probably, because I am interested, like what really, like bottom line, what interests me is it's a subjective point of view confronted with this bigger world, like like individual, like a person trying to live their own best life, but then there are these larger forces at like playing with them, and so I'm always interested in that. It's like, how does it feel to be a person living here and now while all these historic events are swirling around you and you're just trying to pay your rent and be loved and cook your dinner, you know what I mean, like small events, a juxtaposition with these like sweeping historic things happening at the same time as you're cooking your beet soup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to show that in.
Right. We'll have to marinate on that for a
Yeah,
while.
I know. I have to ferment on that, yes.
So your very, very first feature was called Rocks in My Pocket, and that premiered in 2014. Talk to me about how that came to be.
So, I want to give you a pitch to my Love Affair with Marriage, my second feature film, which is I made a lot of short films about sex, and I made one feature film about depression. And in my new film, I wanted to combine the two, sex and depression. So I made film about marriage. And
sounds about right.
but in fact, Rocks in My Pockets is a film. It's a 100-year history of my family's women encounters with depression and suicide, and or battles. I wouldn't say encounters, but battles with depression and suicide. I mean, it's a funny film about depression, but it still, talks about serious subjects. And I started it because, around 2010, I was like, okay, I made 14, 15 short films. They got into Sundance, into Berlin. I mean, I feel like, all right, I know, I nailed it down. I know how to make a short film. As an artist, I want to have a challenge. I want to have a kick in my teeth. I want to have something that I have never done before. And I thought, okay, I'll try to make a feature film. Well, the scary thing about making a feature film is that it's the money, because for a short film, you can make a film in a year, in 2 years, you can do jobs on the side, and somehow you're able to pull it off. For a feature film, at that time I thought you need $100,000. It turned out to be much more, much more. But it is still scary. $100,000, I never held that money in my hand. I never seen that much money in my hand. So I was like, that's really scary, but I have to do something that is really, really scary. So I said, okay, well, what is the film gonna be about? And I thought, well, I made all these sex films because I every 9 seconds I think about sex, but every 12 seconds I think about erasing myself, that I like really don't like myself and I would like to disappear. I don't want to say that I want to die, but I just don't I don't want to be. And then of course it goes away and then I move on. And so I was like, okay, well, I would like to write about this experience, is like what my thought process is about. And I started writing this dark comedy about how I would not commit suicide. Like, for example, I would never jump in front of a running subway car because it would delay all the people behind me. And it is really, really not nice, right?
That's so thoughtful of you.
I know. And so, and I thought it was a comedy and it was going on. And I wrote a bunch of those things. And after page 5, I was like, okay, but this kind of material doesn't make a feature film. So let me start writing about my family a little bit. And I didn't want to write about my family because, my family was still around. But I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to write a couple of pages. But the moment I started writing about my grandmother, Anna, the whole story spilled out in like one spell. And like 3 weeks later, I finished writing the script. And then my partner, Sturgis, he served as a dramaturg. Then we went back to this script and he helped me to shape it in a better, in a script form. So that's how the Rocks in My Pockets came about.
Was it writing that? Was it like going, writing about your family, writing about all these thoughts that you've had? Was it therapeutic at all in a way, like to kind of get that all out onto the page?
No, I mean, it's painful. I
Mhm.
like, honestly, I don't really make films as a form of therapy because I think it would be easier and cheaper to do therapist, because to you know I make films for audience. I want to engage, entertain, I want to provoke, and I also want to connect. For me, my films are a piece of conversation. So it's like a question that I put out to audience, and then the audience responds with their take, with their answer, with their reactions. And so for me to say, oh, I made a film as a therapy, it's not what I do. It's not what I'm interested in. That's just not really completely not true. Also, because in the end, you know, the Rocks in My Pockets was probably the most painful film that I have ever made. And I still cannot watch it with audiences because, you know, it is my voiceover telling the story, and I hate my voice. And also because my family, when they found out what the film is about, they didn't like it. And you know, so they were not happy about me making film about their secrets that they kept under the lid for 100 years, you know. So
Mhm.
you know, there is a better way to do therapy than making films, you know.
Yeah, no, completely. What made you decide, saying you don't like your voice, what made you decide to narrate it yourself as opposed to
Hiring Meryl Streep.
yeah, exactly. I'm sure you or Warner knows someone who knows her.
Yeah, it's funny though. Because I thought, you know, that the film I had to be made for $100,000, and I was doing the fundraising. Oh, like it took 4 years. The production took 4 years, and I knew that the film had to be made very cheap, and I already had done voice my own voice I used for Tidbit of Sex episodes. You know, I made 15 episodes about sex from women's point of view,
Uh-huh.
and and they were very successful, really extremely successful with audiences. And I thought, oh, you know, I could tell the same funny story in my voice. It just would be funny film about depression, and I worked on that. And but of course, like a short film, doing voiceover for a short film is very different from doing voiceover for a feature film, because you need to have an arc, you need to have a change, and you need a little bit more elevated storytelling, you know, like to raise the stakes for audience. And that's and that kind of changed the way how it was recorded, you know. That was different than I recorded Tidbit of Sex. But for 4 years during the production, and I made it because I did the choice because I wanted to save money, and I saved a lot of money, believe me. But for 4 years, there were all these like friends, like really good friends, telling me, "You're making the biggest mistake in your career. You're ruining your career by using your own voice in the film, and an actor would be so much better." And I was like, "Yeah, but I can't have an actor." And at that point, I also knew that my unprofessional voiceover also had power because it is a personal story. It really happened. And it had my voice telling the story, and it had a drive and passion. You know, like there's a way how you can tell that story and say, you know, like normally actors would say, "Oh, when he got up from the table and he walked to the window and he looked outside, oh, it rains." That's a normal actor would talk, right? Whereas
Mhm.
my voiceover would be like, "And then he got up from the table and he went to the window, looked outside. Oh, it rains," he thought. So there's you know, like I'm manic depressive, and this voiceover, my voiceover, conveys that state of mind, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, like yeah, it's like some people said that they after they watch the film, they truly feel that they have been in a mind of manic depressive person, which helps them to relate to other people, you know. So
Yeah, well, it goes back to that means you've done your job, right? Because your whole purpose in creating films, as you said earlier, is about connecting, right? Connecting with an audience and
yeah, shaking them
finding.
up. Yeah, shaking them up. It's like there's one time, oh, when we brought the film to LA, I remember very clearly. I like after the screening, this one young man, he walked out and he was like crying, and he came to me and he said, "I finally understand my partner." Like he said, like my partner was depressed and I couldn't do anything to cheer him up. And then I was like, okay, I'm breaking up with you. But now I understand what he was going through, and I wish I was better to him. I wish I didn't break up. I wish I could help him. I'm like, if my film can bring these feelings in other people, like that we need to have more patience with other people, that we may not understand something, and my film helps you to understand something, you know, it provokes you out of your, you know, complacency, you know, and says there are other people who suffer and they are near you. I think that that film then does the job, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that's wonderful. Tell me a little bit more about, you brought it up a little earlier, Teat Beat of Sex. I know that that was really, really well received. And I know you did some of the voiceover, as you did some of the voice in that series as well, yes?
Yeah, I did again, you know, like you know how the tidbit of sex actually, okay, let me tell you how it came to be.
Hmm.
Because I never even dreamt up this kind of idea. One day, you know, like I am constantly being on the verge of being constantly like desperately broke. And I was sitting there and going towards another, you know, cliff, you know, a monetary cliff. I'm gonna just fall down. And I got a phone call, and this friend of mine calls and says, you know, there's this like new company and they're looking for content and they're looking for short episodes, and I show them your DVD of your films and they really love your work. Can you come and pitch some ideas? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that sounds really great, you know. You know, finally I get some money, I'd be rich. So I pull out of my, you know, my drawers, I pull out these ideas that I hadn't had time to do, and I dust them off and I put them in order. And the next day at 10 o'clock, I go to that office, you know, and I enter the office where the pitch session is going to be. And there are like, you know, four men in suits are sitting with the ties on. And it's a long, long table and sunlit room. And suddenly I feel, you know, inadequate because I was just in my little t-shirt with my little, like, you know, whatever I have on, like everything is old and torn and broken, you know, and I feel really inadequate. And but every time when I feel nervous, I start talking about sex. So I walked into this room and I sat down and I started telling them how I was like thinking about dicks, you know, like I was like noticing that only guys obsess about size of dicks. Like I never met any woman who would be like obsessing about like dicks and comparing dicks size, you know, it's always guys.
Uh-huh.
And and I was like, why is that? Like when I was younger, you know, the dicks would scare shit out of me, like a big dicks, you know, and like I don't really understand what is this big obsession about dicks is about, right? And so these five guys in suits, they're laughing and laughing and laughing, and when I finish like my little rant about size of dicks, you know, and I'm ready to pitch, they say that was your pitch. You're gonna record. You're gonna record yourself talking about, you know, sex or dicks or whatever you want to talk about, and then you're gonna animate on top of that, and that's an episode. I was like, oh my god, that's the that's the most amazing idea I have ever heard. That I could like talk about sex, and then I animate, and then I could like rant about stuff. It's like my favorite things in the world, all in one. So
You
I
get
went,
paid to do it.
and I get paid to do it. And so I went home, I recorded myself, you know, ranting about big dicks. And then I started like animating. And as I started animating, I was like, wait a minute. This is like really, I'm giving them a lot. I'm giving them really, really a lot of original characters, original ideas, original designs and everything. I was like, I wonder how much they're paying, right? I mean, I should have asked first, right? But I forgot. So I go back, like I called them, I said, so guys, how much are you paying? And they're like, well, we're paying $1,000 for each episode. and we are gonna own all the rights. If we want to make puppets or like product based on your designs, we have the rights for $1,000. I'm
Sounds
like,
to me like they were a bunch of big dicks.
I am like, you're fucking, yeah, big dicks. I will never agree to anything like that. And so I said no, but I really like the idea of recording myself and talking about sex. So I continued on, and then like 2 days later, this Italian producer that I met in Sundance, he called and he said, there's so much violence in the world, and I want to have a project about like peace and love and something sexy. I was like, well, I have a project for you. And I sent him the first episode, and he called me right back and said, okay, I'm interested. And so he gave me 2,000 per episode, and we co-own the episodes. So, that's a better deal, right?
Much better, yes.
So that's how Tidbit of Sex came to be.
That's so cool. That's so wonderful. Is that something that you think you would ever uh, revisit? Like maybe, now that some time has passed, things have kind of changed. We're in like a post Me Too era. Is that something you maybe would consider revisiting?
Well, there was one very wealthy person approached me and said, I really like your Tidbit of Sex episodes. Can you make a feature film? And I said, that's great. But at the moment, I was really busy getting ready for Sundance. And I said, I get back to you in 2 months. And then 2 months later, he was not interested.
Oh,
And to this day, I have no idea if that offer was real or he just wanted to meet a woman who made a tidbit of sex. I have no idea. No, I tried to write a script of tidbit of sex, and it's a really elusive beast. Because because these are episodes, but when you organize these episodes into narrative, then it loses something, it loses its charm. And so I haven't found a way to do it right yet. Also, I am not getting younger, and like you don't want an 80-year-old woman talking about sex, do you? On the other hand, I heard in Japan it's a thing now.
Is it?
Older women, yes. But it was in New York Times recently that older women are on high demand for sex.
That's really fascinating.
Yes.
Huh. Wow. Well, then there you go. Maybe do it in Japanese.
Yeah, maybe I should go to Japan. They are more open to unusual sex ideas, or sex film ideas. So I will. Actually, I'm writing it down. I'm gonna go to Japanese producers and offer tidbit of sex.
There you go. So talk to me about, filmmaking, right? Large part of it is, of course, the creation and the doing and the writing and the producing. But then the other half is like hitting the pavement, right? And like getting traction for the film once it's released, getting it into festivals, getting people to talk about it, getting people to write about it. I've spoken to a lot of creators who, that second part they don't necessarily love, right? They just would much rather just dive into their next project. Do you like the aspect of going out and promoting your films and going to the festivals and shaking hands and kissing babies and doing all of those things that need to happen in order to get your film noticed?
I I I see what you're saying, right? About the filmmakers not wanting to do it, and the way how I grappled with it, because I had run 2 Kickstarter campaigns. And when you run a Kickstarter campaign, you are engaged with thousands of people. And that experience, and not just for 1 year, like, for example, we ran Kickstarter campaign for My Love Affair with Marriage in 2017, which is a long time ago. And we are still sending newsletters and being in touch with our supporters. And the way how I turned around looking at the marketing is that I see the marketing, what you describe as the marketing, getting the film out, you know, kissing the babies, you know, and talking to people. I
Mm-hmm.
see that as a form of storytelling.
Okay.
And when you see it as a form of storytelling, then you understand that you are not even it's your next film, it's your next thing that you do. You make a film that's like, you know, one way of storytelling, and then the new phase, next 2 years, you spend storytelling, um whatever you have to storytell, you know, to bring the film to people. Like, you know, storytelling how the film was made. How did you get the actors? How did you, you know, conceive the idea? How did you make the film? How did you raise the money, you know, or why did you make the film, you know, and why all these people wanted to give you money? There's so much to talk about. I like, sometimes I even surprise myself that like I didn't really realize that that's what the film was, you know, like, or and there are surprises from audiences, you know, like, for example, in India, you know, and there's a screening in India, 400-seat theater sold out, you know, and majority of them are men, you know, 400 men and maybe, you know, 30 women. And I was like, well, this is weird, like, you know, but that is reflecting all, like, who is the industry audience? It is an industry audience. Who is an industry in India? Majority are men. And in the middle of film, men start stomping out, they're rushing out, slamming the doors, angrily growling as they leave, right? And, you know, maybe 20 men walked out. And I was like, what is happening? What is happening? And then I come back to the Q&A. The first question is, why your main character is a woman? It would have been so much better if the main character was a man. And you suddenly, my whole world is like upside down, like, whoa.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's fascinating to encounter the questions, this, like, you know, and you continue on the story about the film, you know. I don't know.
Mhm. That's interesting. It is interesting talking about, like, you know, you know, who the industry is made up of in different regions. With that in mind, do you find that audiences in specific regions of the world connect to your work more solely than, say, audiences in other, you know, parts of the world?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, the film is about, you know, a young woman who grows up in Latvia and lives in this Soviet Union that doesn't exist anymore. And then the West opens up and she goes out in the world and discovers new types of people, new types of relationships. You know, there's like a journey also is like in political level, right? And when we premiered the film in Latvia, I was kind of surprised that people in Latvia can see, like, just saw the film as the film is about Soviet Union and Latvia, because the film is not about Soviet Union or Latvia. The film is about a woman. How do we become women? And what is gender? And we should be more, or should we be more inclusive, or should we have more empathy? It's like, or how do you reach an empathy to another person who is different from you, you know? And there are
Mm-hmm.
all these questions in the film, layers and layers of questions. And Latvian audience, majority of them missed the point of the film. They're like, oh, the film is about Latvia and Soviet Union. And when I went to India, the Indian women said the film was about me. It is my experience. The women in Egypt said, oh my God, this film is about me. It's my experience. But the women in America, when we released the film in October, women would come to me and say, that is my story. But also men would come to me and say, oh, I know I'm not a woman, but I tell you, this is my story. I am Zelma. Because it's like, it's about anyone who has ever felt different. And the question is, if you are different, can you still be loved? And should you aspire to be loved? You know, is it love possible for you if you are different? And so that is the question. and a lot of people outside Latvia got it. So it is just an interesting thing. Sometimes closeness to the subject blinds you, or closeness to the topic, right, blinds you to essence of the message. Isn't that interesting?
That's really interesting. That is so interesting. Huh. That's so fascinating. That's really fascinating. That's incredibly fascinating. So folks in New York, um, they can go to BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and they can go to the screening of My Love Affair with Marriage on the 20th of February, the 20th of this month, correct?
Yes.
Wonderful. And where, to those of our listeners who want to learn more about your work and want to find your work, where can they find you online?
I am everywhere. I am very exposed to folks who want to find me. You can look up my love affair with marriage.com, or you can look up signebaumane.com, or you can go on Facebook and find Signe Baumane, or you can find my love affair with marriage movie Facebook page. We have about 5,000 followers there. And I am also on Instagram and on Twitter, both as a person, as a director, and as a film. So yeah, it's like, I think that it would be very hard to miss
To
me
miss
and the
you.
film.
Well, before we go, are you working on anything now that you want to share or tease that you know it's coming up? Anything new?
Yeah, I'm working on a new film, on a new feature film. It's also kind of based on personal experiences. And it's called Karmic Knot. Like, it's you know what
KNOT, like not like a knot, like a.
yeah, like a knot. Yes. You know what karma is? Karma is something lesson that you have to learn. Like, you do the same stupid thing over and over and over until you learn that your mistake, and then once you learn, you reach nirvana, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
yeah.
and and karmic knot is circumstances that push different people together into one, like, knot, and they are not happy together, but they cannot leave the circumstances. And the best example of that is New York rent stabilized apartments where roommates live, right? No,
Uh-huh.
nobody can leave because rent is cheap, but they're not happy together. And or a family, family also is a karmic knot. And so that is what I'm exploring right now.
Well, I can't wait to see it whenever it happens to come out. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you this afternoon. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really amazed, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you more.
Indeed. Hopefully, I think I should be able to make it on the 20th. So I'll have Jose reach out to you and let you know once we get a little closer to the date. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank all of you out there in Radio Land. We'll see you next week on another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM, Las Vegas. And don't forget, you can download the Hot 702.5 FM app and listen to the show in real time. And please check out hot702.5fm.com. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Hi there, it's Jordan Van Haslo. Yes, that Jordan Van Haslo. I don't know if you know this, but everyone's favorite radio show and podcast is now available on Spotify. That's right. Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and friends, my weekly one-on-one chat with some of the most interesting people I know in entertainment and the arts, can now be streamed on Spotify. I share real estate with Joe Rogan.